Now let's take a look at how to create materials in 3ds Max. Materials can be created in one of two editors. We have the Compact Material Editor and the Slate Material Editor. And they're pretty much like they sound. The Compact Material Editor is simpler than the Slate Material Editor. Now we can get to these through the interface by clicking on this button, and we have two options here. If we click and hold, we can select Compact or Slate. So I'm going to go ahead and select Compact first. And as you can see, this is a fairly simple interface. In fact, this is the original 3ds Max interface for materials editing, and it still is a very efficient way to work. Now this has a number of material slots here, and we can select these and then go through and change the parameters for those materials. We also have a number of controls that allow us to reset the map. We can get maps from the current object by using the eyedropper. And then we have a number of other controls. But I really want to look at the Slate Material Editor. So we can get to that in one of two ways. We can go into the Modes menu here. And right now we're in the Compact Material Editor. We can just switch over to the Slate Material Editor by doing this. And that brings us into that. Or we can pull down this and make sure that we're on this icon. And that will also bring us up. So we can switch between modes here if we want. Now this top menu here has just a number of simple commands here. One is material. We can actually get materials from the object in the scene or from selected, or we can get all scene materials. Another thing we can do is we can assign the current material to whatever is selected, and that's very important for applying materials. We can also have an edit menu here. We have a select tool. We also have a view tool, which allows us to just view the interface in a number of different ways. And then we also have the number of tools and stuff here that we can actually turn on or off. So if I wanted to turn off that navigator, I can, or I can turn it on. So we can actually switch some of these interfaces on or off. Now this material editor has a number of different rollouts here. Let's go through some of the basics. The first one is the materials rollout. Now this controls the basic materials in the scene. So if you want to create a new material, this is where you will do it. So if you wanted to create an Autodesk mirror, you could do that here. Or if you want to go into a more general material, we have the physical material. Under Scanline, we have the standard material. We also have a number of metal ray materials for architecture, design, car paint, and so on. Now these are all just basic materials, and a material is really just an algorithm that determines how light interacts with the surface. So something like a mirror will be a little bit different than car paint. So each one has their own individual purpose. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this, and we can also work with maps. So each material will have maps for things such as color, transparency, bump, displacement, and so on. So we can go into these maps to add in whatever we need. So some of these are for reflections or refractions. Some are render specific. So the mental ray renderer has a number of very specific ones. We also have environment maps. So physical sun and sky is another one. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And then we also have controllers, and this is for animating the parameters of a material. And then another really important one is the Autodesk Material Library. So under this, we have a whole array of different types of standard materials. So if you wanted masonry and you wanted some brick, you can see that we have several dozen different types of bricks that we can use in our scene. So we have a ton of really great materials that we can use in our scenes. Now finally, we're getting down to the scene materials, and these are materials that are actually in the scene that we're working with. We have two rollouts here. One is for scene materials, the other one is called sample slots. Now the scene materials is more of a list, and then the sample slots are kind of more of the shader balls. So these are the ones we can actually see the material a little bit more clearly. In fact, if I scroll over here, you can see that this is about 4 wide and then as tall as we need. Now what we can do is we can select one of these, and if we double click on it, it will actually map it here in this view. Now this view is what's called a node editor, and it allows us to take a look at this material and understand how it's built. So this particular material, if I double click on this, you can see that this node is a physical material. So this material has an algorithm that determines how light interacts. And so this material can accept inputs from a number of different places, one of which is the actual base color. And if we take a look at this inside this node editor here, I can actually middle click and drag to pan, or I can roll my middle mouse button to zoom out. You can see that here I have an actual bitmap that is controlling the wood texture on this material. So if I double click on this, you can see that this is the actual node for the material. And down here we can see that it's a bitmap, and here's the file. And we can also control things such as the placement of the texture and so on. So we can create materials, but we can also apply them to the objects in our scene. I'm going to go ahead and scale this window down just a bit so we can get some room on the screen here. So let's say I was in this scene here and I selected the floor, and I wanted that floor to be a wood floor. Well, I have this wood material here. All I have to do is apply it. So all we have to do is go up to our toolbar here, and we have a couple of really nice buttons. One is pick material from object. So if I wanted to, I could eyedropper any one of these materials. Or if I have a material selected either here in the sample slots or in my scene materials, I can apply that. So this one is assign material to selection. When I do that, it assigns that wood material to the floor. And then I can also do all of this stuff from this pull-down menu here. So I also have assign material to selection here. And if I go into my compact material editor, you'll see I have this exact same button, assign material to selection. So if I wanted to select a different material here, such as this one, and select that floor again, I could assign that material to the floor. Or I could select this wood and again apply that to the floor. So as you can see, 3ds Max has a number of material editors. They allow you to select materials from the scene, allow you to edit materials or create your own materials, and then apply those materials to the objects in the scene.